yeah, what I was saying about like punishment and Foddy likes and syncopas, like the run being really long and punishing you and stuff is very relevant to this game, right? Because to some extent it's trying to a large extent actually, because to a large extent this is trying to capture the feeling of actually climbing a rock wall, right? Like it's very obviously doing that. It's very concerned. It's a game that's very concerned with immersion, which part of that experience, a fundamental part of that, like real life rock climbing experience is you can fall and lose progress, right? Especially like the free solo mode. So let me just talk about my actual experience with this game. I started this on free solo mode. I played that for like 30 minutes, and the kind of janky aspects of the game and the fact that I didn't know the controls, and there's like a lot of controls in the game. It's a pretty complicated set of inputs. I mean, you can experiment and figure it out pretty quickly, but you literally start on a wall. Like you start on a wall where you can fall to your death in free solo mode. I ended up persevering to get up that first wall, and then I was like experimenting with the running, and the running in this game works really strangely. Like the running, like it's designed so that you can run very briefly and then jump onto the wall, right? So like it's designed to let you cross a small gap and grab onto the wall somewhere. So it's not designed for just like running around like in normal games where you're just like sprinting around to the next place you're trying to get to. You're mostly supposed to like walk. I mean, there's like a fast walk also. You're supposed to mostly like fast walk around. So, but I didn't know that, right? When I started on free solo mode, I so I'm like trying to make the running work, right? And there's like a run and jump thing, and like there's the stamina in this game is kind of unintuitive how it works. I'm not saying unintuitive in a bad way, because it's actually nice how the stamina, you're not looking at a simple stamina bar, even though behind the scenes it might be represented by a simple bar. Like when you're climbing a wall, you have to kind of intuit your stamina based on the controller rumble and your character's feet. Different limbs start shaking, and she struggles more to like reach certain ledges, and like that's part of what's good about the game actually. But when I didn't know anything and I started on free solo mode, and when you fall you die, and I was messing with the running around the first time I got off of a wall and actually onto firm footing, I sprinted until she ran out of stamina. And when she ran out of stamina, I don't know if it's because she was stepping down off of a little ledge at that exact moment or what, but she just falls and tumbles off of a cliff, and I die. So that was the point when I decided I would not be playing on free solo mode, which I think was a good decision. Yeah, in theory it's for me, but the problem is I want something like baby steps. Like in baby steps, when you fall, that movement system is so much more complex, and you get so much better at that movement by practicing it for I played that game for maybe 30 something hours and was still getting better at you know at least getting better at niche cases within that movement system. Whereas this, it's just kind of shallow. The movement system is kind of shallow. It works perfectly fine for like a single playthrough on the alpinist mode. And I'm not saying I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the game or whatever, but yeah, the free solo mode I don't think is a good fit, at least for my taste. Like I think you kind of have to be okay with a lot of like repetition of this basic, like, I guess someone who's defending it would call it a meditative thing of reaching for the next thing. So let me talk about what I did like about the game though, because I would recommend this game to some people, and the there is something very good about the gameplay, which is, let's see if I'm gonna do it here. So yeah, you can kind of zoom out here, right? Whenever you're about to climb a wall, you can zoom out and look at the whole rock face, and not just the part that you're about to climb. Like I can kind of see from here. I can see. Oh, I mean, I can't because it's so dark. I'm trying to climb at night right now, which is maybe a bad idea. Can I skip ahead? And I really like it kind of struck me that not very many games do something like this, where you are routing. This is a different kind of routing than you often get in games, right? Like the kind of routing, usually when I talk about routing in games, I'm talking about playing through the game multiple times and like slowly you start to memorize everything, like an arcade game or whatever. You over time you memorize enough that you can kind of say like, okay, I'm gonna always like go this way and then I'm gonna go this way, and that's gonna minimize the risk and everything. Like, you're figuring out over time through repetition the safest route to take through the game. But this is a form of routing that I like a lot more, and is really, even though it's called routing, even though I'm calling it routing, it's a totally different thing from that. It's You are looking ahead and you are seeing what you're about to take on, and you're seeing a lot of different options. And crucially, what I think is really interesting about this is you're kind of, when you're doing this, what you're doing is you're really playing the game in your head. You're doing the micro movements in your head. You are thinking, you know, how am I going to do this part? I mean, at least that would be the ideal. In reality, it's a little too obvious sometimes, but I think the ideal version of this kind of mechanic or this kind of loop would have you really having to look closely or scrutinize as best as you can from this perspective, from this below perspective, and compare the different options and be like, okay, well, that's going to be harder in this way, but this is going to be harder in this way, or this one part on this route like looks really hard, but maybe when I get up there, it looks like there might be a spot where I can like put my foot for this one hard part. Like, you're thinking through the entire thing in your head before you actually do it, but you're thinking through it in a slightly more stepped back way. But yeah, it's interesting that you really have to play the game in your head before you actually do it. It kind of reminds me of what I've talked about a lot with Syncopause and with really heavily randomized games in general, where like I was just talking about it with Caramel Action. Like, so much of the gameplay is in your head. So much of the gameplay is thinking about situations that you will never actually see on the screen. A spectator does not know how much is going on in your head, and that's like a really good way to increase the what I think of as the gameplay density. Like, when every move you make is taking into account not just what's on the screen, but like 5 possible branching future realities based on RNG, like that's just a lot more dense. It's a lot more dense with strategic thinking than a game that's completely deterministic. Usually, I don't know if that statement totally holds up, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. Um, and this is kind of like that. This is kind of a much more accessible and clear, easily understandable uh, version of that, where you're getting this gameplay density of, when I'm looking at this wall, I am really playing in my head all these different routes like in parallel, or compare. I'm quickly running through it in my head, at least at a high level, a zoomed out level, and and seeing what it feels like. I'm like feeling it out in my head, and then yeah, I just think there's a lot of potential here for this to be done better. But even here, I did like it a lot. But I do think there's potential for like clear distinctions between the zoomed out experience. What you can see zoomed out. Like, if there's if there's details in the wall that matter a lot, that you can't see from this perspective, and you only see when you get up there, right? Like, there's twists, or there's just like random stuff that can happen. There's like a bird's gonna fly in and mess with you or whatever. Like, yeah, I can see a lot of potential for like, making you play it, making you make the best choice from this perspective. But then once you actually get up there, maybe things change and you have to adapt your plans in an interesting way. It just, yeah, that feeling is greatly enhanced in the giant rock wall section. Yeah, the giant rock wall section, like this part, I'm guessing. I kind of beelined to the hidden thing here, which maybe that's a good segue into another thing I wanted to talk about, which is the exploration. But yeah, this one has a lot of different routing options. And oh yeah, also another interesting thing they do with this is you get maps, you know, if you explore, if you do a good job exploring, you get maps that you can then consult. And when you, the way that you consult them is really well done. Like, by the way, let me just say, I turned on the settings at some point because I don't like the jankiness of the like snapping to the to target, you know, snapping to the ledges when you put your foot next to a ledge, and because you know it's kind of this is kind of a fundamentally dumb perspective for this game, right? Like to see from behind your character and have to know where exactly where you're putting your hands and feet, like you want to see where you're you want to see what you're doing. Like it's very different from this game feels very different from climbing in actual first person in actual reality because your character's body is blocking most of what you want to see at any given time, or like a large chunk of what you want to see. So I found that frustrating, and I was actually ranting to Misa like, um, they should have made the character like Rayman, right? Like they should have made the character like you know how Rayman has like no arms and legs and like a small torso and like just hands and feet that are hovering out there. Like they should have made this about like a Rayman alien character like climbing so that you could see better. Anyway, I was doing that and then I realized I should probably check the settings. So the next time I booted up the game, I checked the settings and there is in fact a setting to let you see your hands and feet. But it would still be better, right? Like it would still be better if I could see what is behind my character's body right now. Anyway, what I was saying is you get these maps if you explore well, and so then when you zoom out, I don't know why I have it paused right now. um, Sometimes I just get too excited to rant about something and I have to have to pause to calm myself down. uh, yeah, so you get maps and hopefully we'll see it in a second here, but like you can overlay the routes that are like written on the map onto the real world, and you can see like, okay, here is what this person who made the map thought was an easy route or whatever, which is really what the developers thought was an easy route, right? Oh yeah, so here there's some really small holds. There's some like really hard to see holds here, which kind of relates to what I was saying before. Like it kind of does a little bit of what I was saying before, where like there's stuff once you actually get up on the wall that you wouldn't have been able to see from below. Um, which I mean, sometimes they're really hard to see even from here, right? Especially if it's dark, which I guess is kind of interesting. I mean, it certainly enhances the game from like an immersion type of perspective. From gameplay wise, I'm not really sure about like the gameplay experience of making me like, like lean into my screen. Like, there's that meme. I was just thinking, I was literally the meme of the guy like squinting at the tiny piece of paper or whatever. I don't know what that's from, but that's literally what I was doing sometimes. Um, anyway, yeah, I thought the map thing was really cool. Thought the kind of routing experience was really cool. That's like a unique thing that you don't really get in a lot of games. I mean, you do kind of get it in baby steps, right? Like not this super concentrated, like I can see a huge wall right now, but like you can see around a lot in baby steps and you can make some interesting choices about your route. And but yeah, often in baby steps it's also more about like what you can't see. You know, you have to kind of guess. Yeah, I guess I've said enough about that. But yeah, the exploration is kind of interesting. It's interesting because for a certain type of game, it's very not interesting. For a certain type of game, it's exactly what you expect from the exploration. But I think it's just been long enough since I played a game like this that it surprised me. The kind of balance between completely linear and open world, right? Like, it seems like every game nowadays just wants to be fully open world. To go back to something that feels a little bit more like, I don't know, the balance that this game strikes feels a lot more like you know, PS1, PS2, PS3 maybe era. Like what most AAA games would be like, would have been like in that era. Like for some reason the game that's coming to mind is Crash Bandicoot. That's not really a great example of what I'm talking about, but like, you know, in that game there's branching paths and there's like secrets like a little bit off the path and things that you can do that are not required. But it's not open world. It's not open world by any stretch of the imagination. And similarly, like a dungeon in a Final Fantasy game, like it has a bunch of. I mean, that's kind of a simplistic, stupid example because people have made fun of those designs a lot. But yeah, this game strikes a nice balance for me of yeah, a nice balance that I think works for a lot of kinds of games where like you're not overwhelmed by the number of different directions that you could possibly go at any given time. But there is a good amount of stuff to find, and there's nice surprises. Like it's also just it feels special in the era of open world slop where everything is copy pasted throughout the entire world. It feels special to play a game where every secret is actually different. That's secret is not really the right word because you're meant to find them. They're meant to be found. But yeah, every hidden little interaction, every little hidden cave and thing that you can find is unique and interesting. They don't just copy paste it until it gets super boring. So yeah, I really like that a lot. There's genuinely cool and surprising, neat stuff to find. It feels like an adventure in a certain way that yeah, that doesn't often work for me in games. I'll say that. Back to one more thing that I really didn't like before I get back to the stuff I did like. The early game really was rough for me. Like I did not enjoy this game for the first like hour and a half maybe. I think the onboarding is just pretty terrible. Like, and I'm not just talking about the fact that I tried to play in free solo mode because you could argue that that's my fault for trusting Bennett Foddy, who obviously has a certain kind of taste, and that's not gonna. I shouldn't expect that to agree with me. But you know, even once you get into the main game, like it doesn't tutorialize things well. Like, there's something about bad tutorials. Bad tutorials are actually worse than nothing. They're not just worse than good tutorials. They're actually worse than nothing to me. Because if you give me no tutorial, I'm just going to say, okay, well, that just means I have to experiment with everything and figure everything out. But if you start tutorializing and then you fail to tell me things that I needed to know when I needed to know them, then you have like punished me for trusting you, right? Like, and that's what happened with this game. Like certain things, it waits a really long time to tell you. I think it actually has a system in place where like if it only tells you about things if you have proven that you do not know. Like it starts out it tells you the absolute basics of the control scheme and what to do very explicitly immediately. And so I thought, okay, so that's what we're doing here. We're doing a thing where you're going to tell me what I need to do. And so I don't have to experiment with everything, and so I'm not going to. I mean, I experimented a little bit still, but yeah. But then yeah, I think it was waiting until I like messed up in a way that shows that I didn't understand something, and then it would tell me that thing that I wish I had understood before I messed up in that way. Like that is itself messed up, man. Like don't do that. I really think that is worse than nothing. It's worse than no tutorial. I mean, you can tell in the lag as well. There's just a lot of slop. There's kind of a lot of slop in this game. Like, I really like a lot about the game, and I understand why it's like, you know, one of the top rated games of the year so far, and successful and everything. But there's kind of just a coating of slop. There's that sloppy feeling to everything in this game. The programming, a lot about the writing, and the just like, you know, you're trying to step up on a ledge and like she just won't do it even though she clearly should. Like there's just a lot of jank in all the different parts of the game that was a little rough. But I stuck with it, and I ended up enjoying it a lot. So the story, I'm not crazy about the territory that the story was exploring, or at least I've like seen enough other stories that do it better that I wasn't like that excited by it in this game. It's kind of like a story about obsession, and it's exactly what you expect from, like, you know, a game about risking your life climbing a mountain for no apparent reason, right? Like it's a story about being obsessed with something and having a goal that doesn't make sense to most people, and how that twists people in different ways. And I don't know, I'm not capturing everything about the story, but it's at least in part about that. It's in large part about that. And yeah, I wasn't crazy about it, but I can see how it would work well for some people. And there was actually one thing, I can't really talk about it because I don't really want to spoil this, but I will say the very last character that you meet in the game They do something with him related to what I was just saying about obsession and how it twists people. They do something with that character, and the way that they did it was like really good. I really liked the way that that landed and what it revealed about him and how and at what moment it revealed that about him and what that means for you and all of that stuff like that. Hopefully those who know what I'm talking about, because I don't want to I don't want to say it specifically, but yeah, the game had its moments story wise, and I like that at least I like that it is a fitting story for the mechanics and everything. You know, that's more than you can say about most stories in games. That's mostly it. I think it's a good, you know, one playthrough on the on the normal difficulty is a pretty good amount of this game. You know, it was a good length for me, because like I said, the gameplay does get old because it's not as deep as something like Baby Steps. The gameplay does get old after a certain point, but I think it was a reasonable length for the one playthrough. Yeah, I would recommend it if it seems up your alley. If you have if you're patient with the kind of janky stuff and everything. But I would say I would say you should sooner play Baby Steps because Baby Steps is a really really good game. And this is kind of like, in a lot of ways, this is Baby Steps, but taking itself really seriously, which is kind of a problem. I don't know. It kind of feels bad to look at this game, like to talk about this game, and then just say play Baby Steps instead, because it is obviously very different. But I do think, despite the mechanics being pretty different, and despite the tone gap, right? There's a very big gap in tone between this game and Baby Steps. I do think despite all that stuff, there's a large overlap in appeal. You know, the climbing and the falling and the progress and the learning about this kind of simple on paper system that's kind of physicsy a little bit in this game, a lot in Baby Steps. Learning about that kind of stuff and using it to overcome something. Obviously, the climbing thing, and I do think Baby Steps is a serious game, right? Like, there's a difference between taking itself seriously, quote unquote, and being serious. Like, Baby Steps is a serious work. It has things to say, and they cared a lot about every piece of that game, that design, like fitting together in a lot of really nice, elegant ways, and everything supporting each other, right? Like, it presents itself as unserious, but it is a serious work of art, and yeah, you should play that game.